Hollywood suffers from gross subjectivism. Something's bad if they don't like it. Something is good if it directly benefits them. Harvey Weinstein provided so many benefits, it was easy to turn a blind eye to his objectively horrific actions. How inconvenient the left is now forced to eat itself. An act Harvey probably would like to watch during one of his disgusting massages. Let's start the show. I'm Kennedy. So is it actually possible nobody knew what was going on, or is this a major case of Hollywood hypocrisy? Let's bring in my fireproof party panel tonight. She's a correspondent on the Greg Gutfeld Show and is celebrated. Writer Kat Timpf is here, along with a contributor at The Hill. And a Trump re-election advisory board member, Harlan Hill, makes his debut. And Reason Magazine editor-at-large, Matt Welch, here to embrace freedom in all its forms. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi. So many spectacles and a lot of glasses, too. So is it possible that people surrounding Harvey Weinstein didn't know about his serial harassment?
It's not possible that the board of Weinstein and Company, which just fired him, was learning about this for the first time, because he settled, what, like 8 of these things? They had to have known a lot of this. So they reacted to not them learning, but to the rest of us learning, and how uncomfortable that was. I'm sympathetic to not everybody knows all the things that happened at various places. That can indeed happen.
But his reputation preceded him.
His reputation,
people knew this.
As an
Journalists knew
absolutely
this.
temper, anger bear who would push reporters downstairs, who was tyrannical. All of this was pretty well known here. I don't know how much of the actual, potted plant business was known to everybody, but it's, relationship businesses in media and in politics and in Hollywood. All of these things are, you want the fame, you want the power and the glory. There's going to be this dynamic when you have gross old men.
And it's interesting because he tried to blame it on the 60s and 70s. Like, well, I grew up in the 60s and 70s where if you were rich and powerful, you could just kind of do this thing.
Yeah, well, and, this is just more proof that with Democrats, it's do as I say, not as I do. I mean, there are numerous high-profile Democrats that we've discussed in just the last 12 months that have done the same kinds of gross things that Democrats have, though. If you listen to how they cover Republicans that are accused of the same thing, or even the president this time
what's
last
interesting
year.
Is they'll say it's the Republicanism, it's the inherent conservatism that creates this dichotomy that makes them sexual predators.
Yeah.
But Harvey Weinstein was a celebrated liberal.
Yeah.
I mean, he marched alongside women in these anti-Trump marches.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that
he did.
The idea that smaller government and less taxes marginalize women is absolutely ridiculous. But if you listen to mainstream liberal talking points, that's exactly the point that they've made for years. It's nice to see that it's finally exposed as false.
Yeah, but they only expose it when they know they have enough ammunition to completely topple him, because people were so afraid of the repercussions.
Right.
And Ashley Judd, by her own admission, said, I'll screw around with you when I win an Oscar in one of your movies. So it's like, that's kind of gross.
It's all very, very gross. And for him to say, oh, I so respect women. What does he think not respecting women looks like? I mean, this is pretty gross. Only sorry because he got caught, and people and potted plants everywhere should be very happy that he is gone. They can never consent.
The good news is that his totally absurd letter where he tried to say, yeah, but I hate the NRA and I'm going after them, it didn't seem
the weirdest part
to work, right? He thought that he could just play to the political kind of sense of hatreds of his own team, and I don't see many people out there in Hollywood going, that's right. He really does hate Trump enough so that it's okay.
We need someone who's going to force the retirement party. Go ahead and grope away, Harvey. No. Now, meantime, a powerful Republican senator now claims the president is putting the U.S. on a, quote, path to World War III. And it comes after the two men sparred publicly for the better part of Sunday. Started yesterday morning when the president tweeted that Tennessee Senator Bob Corker didn't have the guts to run for office again. Corker last week said he would not be seeking re-election. Fire back in a tweet saying, quote, it's a shame the White House has become an adult daycare center. Someone obviously missed their shift this morning. Oh, Bob, so fiery. The president then claimed Corker begged for his endorsement and had asked the president to be Secretary of State. Please let me be Secretary of State. It's unclear if either of those things actually happened. And Corker then told the New York Times that the president is treating his presidency like a reality show. So who's going to come out on top here? Kat, I understand the back and forth. I understand the counterpunch when Corker feels like he's attacked, but he then needs to make a shift to serious adult time policy if he wants to be taken seriously in the remaining days of his
Adult
senatorship.
daycare center is an excellent insult.
That is good.
It's a good one. However, this whole thing is like an adult daycare center at this point. See, they're publicly airing their dirty laundry constantly in the Republican Party, like meh, 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 meh. And meanwhile, you think maybe they wouldn't be able to get anything done because they're so busy doing this. And yeah, they're not getting anything done.
They aren't getting anything done.
Yeah.
And Corker is in a very important and prominent position still. And the president is attacking the members of the Republican Senate caucus who are not going to be senators for much longer, when he maybe should be massaging those votes a little bit, like a starlet in Harvey Weinstein's hotel room.
Well, the president touched on something that I think is really important. Bob Corker would not have won re-election. And it's because a lot of Trump voters like me, and I talked to a lot of them all over the country. Well, I don't think he would have won. There is an underswell to reclaim the Republican Party that's more, or remake it more in line with the vision of the President of the United States, not in the image of the establishment Republicans that have gotten us basically nothing but the Iran deal, higher taxes, Obamacare, all these things. And so Corker is going to be on the way out, and Corker is a warning sign to a lot of establishment Republicans they won't deliver. They don't have to like Trump. They just have to start getting something done. That's it.
All right, so you note that there are a couple things I don't want to touch on there. First, I'm going to get to Matt's point, and then if we have time, we'll circle back to that. Because this whole notion that somehow Steve Bannon is the savior of the Republican Party, like what he wants to craft the party into is somehow Republican, I think there's a debate to be had there. But first, I want to talk about this previously hidden courage. And, someone like Bob Corker finally coming out and saying something. It's a little disingenuous now that he's not running for re-election.
He was out there in April and July of 2016, after which a lot of the character traits that he's now slamming in the president were very, very well known to a lot of people, and he was trying to twist his colleagues' arm, saying you got to get on the train and stop being obstructionist. It's like, former Mexican presidents always get religion after they're out of office about legalizing marijuana being a good idea to end the drug war. So it is really opportunistic. Corker might be right on that. Trump, we don't really know who's running his foreign policy, and it's unsettling when that is the case. But when he says things like World War III, he kind of loses
hyperbolic.
It's hyperbolic, and it's also this is true of a lot of people like John McCain and other kind of never Trump type of conservatives. Those people have yet to fully acknowledge and take discredit for the amount of interventionism that they have injected into foreign policy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, how many of these guys bomb North Korea since the 90s?
Exactly right, and they want to bomb Iran and China and everyone else. But back to your point about recrafting the Republican Party, there are also some dangerous elements there. First of all, you have a president who's unwilling to cut spending, but he wants to cut taxes. He wants to be protectionist when it comes to the economy, trade, and immigration, and those are all things that could totally thwart the economy.
Well, ultimately, the Republican Party is not going to be remade purely in the image of President Donald Trump.
Well, because he's not a Republican.
If other Republicans come to the table and are willing to define what the future of the party looks like. But right now, it's very much in flux. It's just as much in flux as the Democratic Party is.
Absolutely.
I don't think that's just the establishment's fault or Trump's fault. I think there's a GOP identity crisis going on right now where they don't know who they are. This health care bill was pretty liberal. It wasn't really a conservative bill.
No. Susan Collins and Mike Lee don't belong to the same party.
Exactly.
They do not meet the same definition for the word Republican, which still has to be fleshed out. Now, speaking of flesh, we'll see them in the flesh a little bit later on. First up, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein just weighed in on the Las Vegas shooting and our nation's current gun laws. Well, it looks like the White House may want to hire a new travel agent. The Washington Post now reporting that inspectors general have opened at least 5 investigations into private or military flights taken by some of the president's cabinet secretaries, and that all the flights have cost millions in taxpayer dollars. As you recall, Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price resigned last month. It was a short stay amid allegations of private jet trips across the country. Now investigators are said to be looking into trips made by Rick Perry, Scott Pruitt, Ryan Zinke, David Shulkin, and Steve Mnuchin. Cabinet members are supposed to be flying commercial when they can. But with an administration that's reportedly one of the wealthiest ever, is this the best way to drain the swamp? The party panel is back. Katherine Timpf, Harlan Hill, and Matt Welch. Kat, it is unsurprising that a bunch of entitled human beings are flying on private jets. I would much rather fly private. If someone else is paying the bill, that is a great way to fly.
I guess, but not if it's going to ruin your career.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
the downside.
It's dope, but is it so dope that you want to just ruin your whole career? I'm faced with the decision when I fly, like I can fly coach or I could fly a couple hundred more in first class. I always fly coach because a couple hundred's not worth it. So certainly, in that calculation, a career-ending move would not be worth it for me. I mean, is it that good? I could take this one flight that's super dope and maybe ruin my... It's not like people aren't going to notice.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people in the president's cabinet who can afford to fly private. They probably have a fleet of their own jets.
Yeah.
So why are they draining our coffers?
It's thievery.
Well, I appreciate that the president forced Price out, you know, because the president did run on being more fiscally conservative than his predecessor. And I think that they need to set the tone now going forward that if anybody in the cabinet abuses their traveling privileges, that they're on the way out.
A lot of these party bros are doing that, though.
Well, at the very least, they need to be asked to reimburse the government, I think. Yeah, if they can afford it, absolutely.
It's our money.
Our money.
First of all, the president did not run as being more fiscally conservative than Obama.
He was going to increase the military budget.
That's not his
He
predecessor.
wasn't going to cut any entitlements. No, he was not a cost cutter.
And I will bet you money right here on television, because that's legal if it's on television. I will bet you money that Trump's first fully owned budget will increase the deficit more than Obama's first fully owned budget. And also, he will spend more money.
Were you comparing 2009 versus 2017?
I'm saying fully owned budget, he will spend more money and the deficit will be larger
just on different things. It'll be on war, it'll be on infrastructure.
We just passed a $700 billion
$1 infrastructure bill? That's conservative cost cutting?
There isn't. I mean, he ran on, I'm not going to touch your entitlements, although he doesn't really fully understand what the entitlements are necessarily. And he's just shown no predilection towards it. We just raised the debt ceiling. No one cares anymore about this stuff. And it's not just him. Don't get me wrong. It's really the GOP
also, and
Congress.
I bet Obama's cabinet secretaries were spending the same amount of money.
Obama at least had Republicans who cared about fiscal conservatism. Trump, once you're in power, the Mick Mulvaney's of the world, they go from being deficit hawks to
shift.
We need new deficits. He actually said that.
That's sad. Harlan, last word, honey.
Look, I think you're absolutely right. We need to see a different tone in Washington. The way that they're just frivolously throwing away money has got to end, and that starts with their personal travel. So.
And your personal Jesus.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Matt, Harlan, and Kat. Woo! Coming up, EPA Director Scott Pruitt today announcing the Trump administration ready to dump the Obama-era regulations on coal-fired power plants. He says the government should not be picking winners and losers. But is the victory for coal really a win for capitalism? Jonathan Hoenig does the math, crunches the numbers, and does some crunches. Great abs next.